In Clash Royale, the upgrade system is very simple. You collect cards, and once you have enough cards for your next upgrade, you can use gold to upgrade them to that level. These cards range from common all the way up to champion rarity. This makes every chest and lucky drop feel unique and exciting, since you never know exactly what you're gonna get. But throw that all out of the window because in June of 2023, we were introduced to elite wildcards. Now, I want to be very clear and tell you that I won't be here to complain about level 15. It's been about 2 years and I've come to accept that I may never max out my account. With that being said, however, I do want to talk about the system tied to getting level 15 and why it's kind of weird. Now, for if you don't know how the system works, let me give you a quick rundown. If you have a card upgraded to level 14 and then get that card again, those cards will get converted into elite wildcards. The higher the rarity, the more elite wildcards you get for excess cards. You get 50,000 of them, great, that is one singular upgrade. Anyway, it's always bugged me how rarities basically lost all meaning once level 15 came out. Sure, legendaries give more elite wildcards than commons, but both upgrades cost the same, 50,000 wildcards and no gold. Like, really? Getting 20 champions is way harder than getting 5,000 commons. But the game suddenly treats them as equals at level 15. Because it doesn't really matter whether you're upgrading elite barbarians or a golden knight, both will cost 50,000 elite wildcards. It used to matter what you got, now everything just funnels into the same boring currency. And that's where the problems start, because once everything turns into elite wildcards, the whole reward system just falls apart. Books, chests, lucky drops, the shop, none of it makes sense anymore. A book of common gives you 5,000 elite wildcards, and so does a book of books. Like, what? One of them is supposed to be the rarest item in the game, and they're worth the same? If you think about it, a book of books is able to give you 20 champions, which is worth 80,000 elite wildcards. It diminishes in value so much, and it doesn't make sense at all. Imagine I have a level 13 champion. I then use 20 champion wildcards to upgrade him, and then I'm left with a book of books. This book of books is now only worth 5,000 wildcards, which is only 10% of an upgrade. But let's now do it the other way around. This time, I use the book of books to upgrade my champion to level 14. This leaves me with 20 champion wildcards that I can now convert to 80,000 elite wildcards, which is 160% of an upgrade. This basically means that the book of books becomes 16 times less valuable the moment you have everything maxed. That's why I'm holding on to them. I'm not converting them to elite wildcards. But let's talk about how lucky chests make no sense when it comes to obtaining elite wildcards. Let's take a look at this. A 4-star drop with 72 epics is actually worse than a 2-star drop with 1 champion. And how does that even happen? I mean, 4-star is 2 tiers higher. But then sometimes you can get like 10 Electro Wizards worth 15,000 elite wildcards, which is basically the same as pulling 3 Book of Books. And regular chests, they feel so much less valuable. Of course, a chest like a super magical chest isn't as special as it was in the glory days of 2016, but look at this. 1,234 elite wildcards that I got from this chest. What was once a super exciting chest to open,
Go! Yes!
now results in a 2.47% contribution to a singular upgrade. That means you need like 50 of these for one upgrade. Now, I understand I didn't get a legendary in this one, but still, you get my point. Everything feels flat. There's no real difference between getting something rare and common anymore, because the rarity doesn't really translate to better rewards. Opening chests also feels very unexciting because all cards turn gray and just get converted into elite wildcards. And what about the gold? I mean, upgrading from 14 to 15 costs no gold. I guess they've got some type of solution, because you can just buy all cards in the shop every day, and then the 5,000 elite wildcards for 100,000 gold once a week. Which basically means the level 15 upgrade is 1 million gold. But let's forget all of this for a second, because that's coming from me, a player with basically everything at level 14 or higher. I have max cards, and even for me it takes about 2 weeks or so to get 50,000 wildcards. I can't even begin to imagine the struggle of hitting 50,000 wildcards without having everything maxed. It feels like such a flawed system with so little depth. When you're not maxed, you don't have the luxury of spending 100,000 gold for 5,000 elite wildcards. You need it for your normal upgrades. And if you only have a few cards at level 14, good luck getting duplicates for those. The only thing actually worth grinding for is evolutions, but you can't really grind for those. Outside of the 2 wild charts in the past and the seasonal event that gives 3 random ones, you're basically stuck crossing your fingers and hoping you get one from a lucky chest. And because there's no real way to get them, you kind of end up with nothing left to chase. Now it's clear why Supercell did it this way. I mean, evolutions are a great way to monetize the game, but it'd be amazing if there was at least some type of alternative, like being able to buy them with gems or gold, and this could be at an absurd price, like maybe 500,000 or maybe 1,000,000 gold per shard, because that way you can actually choose which evolution you want and save up for it, rather than just relying on pure luck. Now, I also want to compare regular wild cards to normal cards. Let's say you open a 4-star lucky drop. I can get about 79 random epic cards or 32 epic wild cards. For a player still leveling up their cards, that difference actually makes a lot of sense. Wild cards are rarer and more flexible, and so you get fewer of them. That's fair. You get less of them because they're worth more. Because let's say the only epic you use is the lightning spell. Then getting 32 epic wild cards basically means you got 32 lightnings. It's very helpful and clearly has a lot more value than regular epic cards. You could get 79 random epics, and that could be great because who knows, maybe you get lucky and you get 79 lightnings, or it could be completely useless and you end up with 79 clone spells that you do not use. So for a player still progressing, this system worked. Wildcards were better because they gave you a choice. You basically sacrifice quantity for control, and that trade-off made sense. But once elite wildcards entered the picture, that balance just fell apart. Because now for a max player, both rewards, the 32 wildcards and the 79 random epics, just get converted into the same thing, elite wildcards. And that's where it breaks completely. The original logic of wildcards are rare but more valuable no longer matters, because the end result is the exact same. Whether you get something rare or common, everything just turns into the same resource. 30 wildcards or 70 normal ones, they both turn into elite wildcards. But did you know that when elite wildcards first dropped, the conversion rates were completely different? Back then, we would only get 200 elite wildcards for a legendary and 500 for a champion. Players complained, and Supercell increased the legendary and champion conversion rates by a lot. But while doing so, they also decreased the conversion rates for epic, rare, and common cards. And this is why it's a problem. Majority of players don't have legendaries and champions maxed. They're insanely hard to get, let alone upgrade all the way to level 14. Which means for the average player, these higher conversion rates don't even exist. Meanwhile, the cards they do have maxed, commons, rares, maybe a few epics, give them less elite wildcards. Now, I actually did a bit of math to see how big the difference between the old and new conversion rate really is. I based it off of this Orange Juice video where he opened 100 lucky drops, and that's what I'll be using as an example. In that video, he ended up with 11,159 commons, 3,695 rares, 272 epics, 0 legendaries, and 13 champions. With the old conversion rate, that gives you 79,368 elite wildcards if you have everything maxed. With the new conversion rate, it gets you 87,074 elite wildcards, which is a small bump overall. So yeah, technically the new system gives you more. But, like I said, only if you have everything maxed. Those 13 champions alone already make up 52,000 of that total. If you remove them, which is what most players would experience since almost nobody has all their champions maxed, the math completely flips. Without the champions, the old system would have still given you 72,868, while the new one drops down all the way to 35,074. That's a loss of nearly 38,000 elite wildcards for the exact same amount of cards. So when people say the conversion rates were buffed, that's only true for players like me, who already have everything maxed. But for the average player, it's a massive downgrade. And things have only gotten worse, as with the November season of 2025, elite wildcards have been removed from ladder and ranked, and we didn't even get an elite wildcard event in October. Now, they did say on Twitter that they would be addressing it later this week, so I'm gonna try and stay hopeful and say it was just a bug, but we'll see. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. These videos take me a lot of time to make, and subscribing to the channel is the best way to show your support. Also, YouTube thinks you'll like this video, so I think you should watch it to see if they're right.